Well, what happened, everybody? What happened to all the Yuri Prohashka supporters that said I was crazy, that I was going too deep into the injury, that he was going to lose the fight? What happened? So the only thing I could say about that, I will hold on to this until further notice. Because now, that's it. I should wear this the whole show, actually. I should literally wear this the whole fucking show. Because I deserve it. Everybody made fun of the article. It's so long. You know, too much about the injury, not enough about the fight. Well, anybody who followed me, congratulations. You were on the right side. Anybody who actually put money on Yuri, I told you from the very beginning it was a foolish pick. You're putting money on a guy you haven't seen in 17 months. So even if he ended up winning the fight by some chance, it was still a bad bet. Still a bad wager because you haven't seen the guy in over a year. So congratulations to the people who followed me. I will hold this belt gladly for us until further notice. There was one issue in that fight that I did not like because it kind of took the shine away from Alex Pieta, and that was the early stoppage, right? Quote unquote, the early stoppage. So people were, I'm going to take this off to be comfortable, but I'm actually going to leave it right here. Doesn't even have to see it. You just, that's fine, whatever. You guys know who the champ is. The early stoppage. So the thing with the early stoppage is this, guys. Like, was it a little premature? Yeah, it was a little premature. Was it egregious? Absolutely not. The fact of the matter is he got clipped. He went down with a chopping shot. He went down to a knee. He went to collect himself, went for a shot. He was getting caught with elbows on the temple, and he ended up going down. He rolled backwards. Now, when you're rolling backwards, you're showing that you're going out again. He also came out and said that I was out. Like, I got flash knocked out. Now, you guys want to see him killed? I mean, that's up to you. There wasn't a lot of time on the clock. He may have survived the round, but the fact of the matter is he got clipped. He went down. He went for a shot. He rolled back again, and that was that. Nobody made a big deal or a big stink about the stoppage. I forget what it was. There was a stoppage where he went roll. I don't know if it was this card or the last card, but there was no one made like a big deal about that stoppage. Why? Because of the fact that maybe they didn't have money on it, or maybe they weren't so invested in Yuri. But the fact of the matter is it was on the cusp of being early and being okay. It wasn't egregious in any way, shape, or form. If he was on his feet and he was getting teed off upon and Goodart came in and stopped the fight, I'd say, okay, well, you don't know. Maybe he was swinging his arms. Maybe he did have a chance. He still had some lead in his legs. He was down twice. Because if you think about it, he went down the first time, and then when he shot in on him to kind of collect himself, he rolled back again. So technically, he went down 2 times. He got flashed 2 times. I have no problems with the stoppage. People say in a championship fight, they should last a little longer. I tend to agree in some spots, but I also would not argue that in any way, shape, or form. I think Alex is the rightful winner. I did see some holes in Alex's game that I did not like, that I may be looking to expose in some other spots. But this wasn't the spot, guys. Like, this was not the spot. A guy that's coming off a shoulder injury and has not fought or stepped in the cage in 17 months. You saw a clear, different Yuri. There were spots where he looked like himself. He was kind of moving forward, but he didn't look super crisp. He didn't look super sharp. He didn't look like he had like this overall game plan about him. It was a fight that Alex was going to win. I mean, he literally was biting into Alex's game plan. You have a counter striker in Alex Pieta. He's not really a hardcore aggressor. He's a counter striker that likes to move forward. You know what I mean? He doesn't like being on his back foot. And Yuri was putting him on his back foot, which was a good game plan, but he wasn't really doing much with it. He was having his spots. He caught Alex with a couple shots, but he didn't look like the Yuri of old. And I wasn't expecting him to. He didn't look like that real crazy dynamic Yuri that everybody's so used to seeing. He had a couple good shovel punch uppercuts that looked like they were nice. A couple of them landed, but I feel like if he were to get into his pocket, if he were to get into his groove, it would probably take him until about the 4th round. To him to really start feeling himself. But it was just, to pick Yuri, like I said, you're picking him blind. So Alex is the rightful winner in that spot, and now we get to see him and Jamal Hill, which is going to be an interesting fight, and I can't wait to break that one down. Next one down was Aspinall and Pavlovich. That was not going down the way I expected it to go down. I did pick Aspinall to win, but I did think he would play possum with him a little bit. I did not think he was going to go straight into the foxhole with him and have a firefight with him. Caught him with a beautiful shot in the temple that kind of knocked his equilibrium off, and then put him down with another shot. So he's proved to us now that this dude is the real deal. He does have power. And Pavlovich showed us that he is what he is. He's just a big, strong, powerful guy that if you get in the way of one of his shots, you're probably going to sleep. Although he did catch Aspinall with a good shot, backed him up, but Aspinall kind of moved forward. So, look, man, you always take the technical fighter over the puncher. I tell you guys this over and over and over again. And is there going to be times where the better fighter doesn't always win? 1,000% it happens. Derek Lewis has been the poster boy for that. More times than not, the technical fighter always beats the puncher. So hopefully you guys were on the right side of that. The one that I did get wrong on the main card was Jessica Andrade and Mackenzie Dern. Shame on me, because I'm always repeating to you guys how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now is really not an afterthought, but it's really not as dominant as it once was, right? I tell you that people are kind of onto the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game now. People know how to defend it. And unless you have any sort of wrestling, it's pointless. And Mackenzie Dern, when she was trained under Perillo, her striking in her last fight looked really good. She looked sharp. She looked like she was kind of turning the corner with her overall game. No Perillo this time, and you could totally tell. I mean, she went straight from a well-rounded fighter, coming along to be a well-rounded fighter in her last fight. Striking looked good, and then all of a sudden, boom, she goes right back to this sloppy Mackenzie Dern with no wrestling in any way, shape, or form. She had the one head and arm throw that she failed on right in the beginning of the fight, and then from there on in, it was all Jessica Andrade. She had no answer for Andrade. She looked absolutely terrible. She actually took 2 steps forward in her last fight to take 7 steps back in this fight. So shame on me for not going with my constitutions on that. Always go with the striker against somebody who really doesn't have any wrestling to utilize the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But that's just a testament to the statement I always tell you guys. I don't care how elite your grappling is. If you can't get it there, you don't have striking, it's fucking pointless. So honestly, shame on me for that spot. Next one was St. Denis. We ended up hitting that inside the distance. I said that Matt Frivola was fighting over his potential, that he was overachieving. Not that he was overachieving in this fight, but he did get caught and he did get knocked out. And I told you that chin was going to show itself at some point in time. And sure enough, it did. And it ended earlier than I thought, but it ended. And then the last one was Diego Lopes. The same thing. I said about this. There's something about this kid that I really, really like. I really like this kid. It's almost like he came out of the woodwork. He came out of the dark. The kid's on a run. And listen, all respect to Sabatini. I do like Sabatini, but I knew that his striking was going to be the issue there. And when you get a guy in Diego Lopes who kind of maybe not matches wrestling and grappling to a T, but he can, stay safe, and he can compete, and he can be dangerous off his back and give Sabatini things to think about on the ground. Diego Lopes had the big time stand-up advantage in this fight, and I knew that if it stayed there, he would end up getting him. And sure enough, he did. He clipped him and got it out of there. So overall, good night for us. I know a lot of people got bludgeoned. We ended up going up. This is about 11 to 12 units in 2 weeks now we're up, so we're doing very well. We're looking to run it back for this card. This card is not going to be as glorious as the last card. We do have some good fights on here, though. We got guys that are kind of cusping. We got guys that are sitting like right outside the serious discussions. Some guys that are borderline being in discussions or completely out of discussion. So it's like one of those cards. These are like teeter cards, right? Justification cards to see where they're going to trim the fat and stuff like that. But overall, it should be an interesting card. It should be a fun card. And I do see some spots on this card as well. If you guys want my full breakdowns, full write-ups, full wagers, DFS, you get free NFL wagers in that. Guys in the Discord are doing NHL, NBA. It's the best community around. I mean, it really, really is. I'm not saying that because it's mine, but nobody fights. Everybody gets along. Everybody's sharp in there, and we're all just there having a good time, sweating the games and sweating the fights and stuff like that. Go to the madlabmma.com. You can also follow me at Twitter at the madlabmma. I think that's my handle. I always forget my handle, but yes, it is. That is my handle. All right, so let's go right to the main event. You got Allen versus Craig. The one thing about Allen is Craig, this guy is almost like the grappling version of Derek Lewis, right? This guy wins fights he technically shouldn't win. I mean, just go back all the way to the Ankalaev fight where Ankalaev literally was beating him from pillar to post for 3 rounds, and then he ends up submitting him. He ends up submitting him at the very, very last minute. Now, that was a crazy fight for me because if you watch it, it went right down to the wire. It went down to like 5 seconds, and he throws up a submission. And Ankalaev, I guess, didn't know how much time was on the clock, but he ends up tapping, which was ridiculous. You might as well, go to sleep at that point. But he is a very, very crafty submission guy. I mean, you got to admit it. The guy's very crafty. He finds ways to win. And that's really all you can ask for. Like when you're dealing with a guy, whether it's DraftKings or whether it's wagering or stuff like that, you want a guy that, okay, yeah, maybe he's behind the eight ball with talent. Maybe he's behind the eight ball with certain things, but this guy knows how to sniff. He's like a beagle. He knows how to sniff out the rabbit. He knows how to sniff out the sub, and he does it a lot. And you know, in the beginning of his career in the UFC, at least, if you look at it, it was completely bloodshot of red and white. It was a win, a loss, a win. He was on a rotating door. Then all of a sudden he went on a little streak. You know, he beat Antigulov, he beat Hua. Jamal Hill was kind of fluky. He beat Nikita Krylov. Then he lost to Olzamir, lost to Walker, and here he is now beating Andre Muniz, with a lot of people had Muniz, who's a really good grappler, thought he could nullify Craig. It wasn't the case. Craig ended up KOing him at this point, and that is a fight where this is a fighter who really, his striking is fucking putrid. I mean, it's like if there's neophyte striking, Paul Craig has it. He's also very chinny. He's taking a guy in Brendan Allen now who, in his own right, he's very slick with his submissions, right? This is a guy who really has good grappling. He's very slick. He's very aware on the ground. He knows where he is at all times, but he's got striking too. The kid has a decent striking game. He definitely relies on the sub. He looks to put his striking on you to get you to the ground and utilize that. I think this is a tough out for Craig. I think this is a situation where, you know, when you have that path to go down, when you know, listen, okay, he's got me in the striking, but I'm going to, you know, from hell to high water, I am going to go and I am going to try to take this to the ground and sub him. That's a great path to have if the guy does not have grappling. But you got a guy in Brendan Allen who does have grappling. So he's got the striking. He's got the grappling. He just has more paths to win. He's got better cardio. And when things start going awry, when the shit starts hitting the fan, you can see Paul Craig does not have a poker face. He starts to back up. He starts to get sloppy, swing for the fences, where Allen kind of just eats it and walks forward. So, listen, I would not be surprised if Allen pulls a rabbit out of the hat here, but I got to go with Allen here. I'm going to go Allen probably by decision. And believe it or not, I wouldn't be shocked if he knocked him out. I know, Allen is not a knockout artist in any way, shape, or form. Both of these guys are grapplers. I think it's going to be hard to submit one another. But I could see a situation where it's kind of a boring fight. Both of these guys are trying to stand. They're both not the greatest strikers. Allen's a little bit better. Maybe knocks him down once or twice, and it goes to the car. So I'm going to go Allen. I'm going to say by decision, but I wouldn't be shocked if it goes inside the distance. Next fight, Michael Morales and Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews is a guy who I was high on when he was coming out, right? This is a guy who he's a good build, very athletic, well-spoken. The only problem with him is he's got fucking horrendous cage IQ, and the guy just never graduated. When you get a fighter that comes in raw, and you got to remember, this guy's been in the UFC for quite some time now. He's 12-6 in the UFC, and he's very young. So they started him early. And the problem I got with bringing guys in too early is sometimes you see the pitfalls of what the UFC can do to a fighter. They did it to Sage Northcutt. They did it to a lot of fighters that are young. They bring them up a little bit too young, and you kind of spoil the apple, right? And that's what happened, I think, with Jake Matthews. I think he got thrown into the fire a little bit too young, and he never had time to just slow down. Like, slow down and learn. Slow down and grab. He was always, I got to get into a fight. I got to do this. I got to do that. We got to get back into camp. And he was always playing catch-up. Instead of relaxing, not enjoying the process, but learning little by little and then going up, he rushed right into the UFC at a very young age, and he got thrown into the fire, and there was no room to learn at that point. So he's stuck. He's going to have his good fights. He's going to have his bad fights. But, more than not, if he fights a guy that is a little bit more seasoned, a little bit more ready for the moment, they're going to beat him. You got a guy here in Morales now who not enough of people are talking about this kid. This kid is really, really good, man. I mean, he's 15-0. He's 3-0 in the UFC. He's looked good in up until this point. He's checking all boxes as of right now. He's still, there's still parts of him that we don't know about. There's still parts of him that we still have to see. Do I think he should be a minus 270 against Jake Matthews? No, I do not think I don't think he should be a minus 270, because a dialed-in Jake Matthews could possibly be Morales at this point in time. But we don't know if you're going to get that from Matthews. More times than not, I would say 65 to 70% of the time, you'll get a part of that Jake Matthews in spots of fights, and then all of a sudden he reverts back to shithead, I have no cage IQ, Jake Matthews. But still, that's a chance you're taking. There's that 30 to 35% chance that you're taking that, what if Jake Matthews actually shows up and has one of his performances? Then what happens? So the minus 270 doesn't sit well with me, but I do like Morales here. I think this is a spot for him. I do not think in any way, shape, or form they're putting Jake Matthews on the co-main event to advertise for Jake Matthews. I think they realize that Morales is good and he's not getting enough attraction with some of these other guys, and this is a way for them to get him some exposure, to get him some shine with a big win here against a name like Jake Matthews, who is a name, but overall just hasn't lived up to his standards. So I'm gonna go with Morales here. I'm going to say Morales gets it done by decision. Next fight, very interesting fight here. I don't know whether to laugh at this fight or take it seriously, but Chase Hooper is another guy that they should have never brought in this early against Leavitt, who is a very interesting cat. This is a guy who reminds me of a fucking librarian that you would see in your town. And when I say that, I really mean that. Like, the dude is just a very feminine, well-spoken guy. He looks like he would be like a male cheerleading coach. You know, I mean, he really, really does. But he's got very unchained grappling. He's a very good grappler. The kid loves to fight, but he's got zero striking. So, like, his striking, you got to completely throw it out the window. Well, lo and behold, you got a kid in Chase Hooper now who has probably worse striking than Justin Leavitt, but he's also got a very good grappling game. The difference in here, though, is like Chase Hooper's like, look, he's 23 or 24 years old. Like, there is a lot of room for him to learn, where Leavitt is kind of mature already, right? I would say that Hooper's got the more slick grappling game. He's the guy that can kind of, transition on you, in sneaky situations or turn the tables in situations where you make a mistake, where Leavitt is more of the guy who he's going to look for the opening and he's going to do more of the standard grappling. He's going to look for the leg locks. He's going to look for situations that present themselves to him. He's not going to look to create them, where Chase Hooper's looking to actually create these slippery grappling exchanges. I don't think Hooper should be a minus 230 favorite here. I do not think these guys are good in any way, shape, or form. I don't think Chase Hooper's going anywhere. I don't think Justin Leavitt's going anywhere. I think the smart play would probably be picking Chase Hooper in this spot, but because I'm not going to have probably any skin on this fight, I think that line is asinine, so I'm going to go with Leavitt. I'm actually going to take the dog in Leavitt here. I'm going to take a shot on him. That is maturity. He's got that man strength. That's one thing that Hooper has had issues with, that overall adult man strength. Like, guys have been able to get their hands around him and kind of just ragdoll him like a child. He's very tall, he's very skinny, he's very long. He's gotten a lot better, don't get me wrong. He's growing into his man strength now, but when you're taking a kid that's 24, 25, 26 years old against a guy who's a little bit older, a little bit more grown into his body, you're talking about a man to a boy at that point. You know what I mean? So tough fight because they're both very interesting cats. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Leavitt here. I'm gonna say that he ekes this out by decision at some point. I would not touch his fight in any way, shape, or form. Next fight. This is actually a really good fight. Pinheiro versus Ribas. Ribas is somebody who everybody was super high on, right? Listen, a lot of guys get high on some of these women fighters because of their looks, because their marketing and stuff like that. And I get it, but you got to kind of look past that, right? And when you look at Ribas, this is a girl who, is she good? Yeah, she's good, but her record has not really indicated as of late that she's going to be this superstar. She's 6-3 right now in the UFC. She has shown some good things. She has been in some uncalled for wars. Let me just pull something up here real quick. Yeah, her last fight, I mean, if you look at her last couple of fights, if you look at her fight against Barber, why did she lose that fight? She was kind of bullied around in that fight, right? She kind of lost traction early. She looked good early. She lost traction early. She beat Viviane Araújo, but if you look at Viviane Araújo, she's not really a bully, right? This girl is more of a tactician, speed, so that's something that Amanda Ribas was able to formulate with. She ends up losing to Chookagian. Now, this is an interesting one for me, because when you lose a split decision to Chookagian, that just shows that, like, where was your volume? Like, Chookagian is a very, very low-volume striker, very basic, very fundamental. You kind of know what she's doing, which shows me that I can lull you into these certain kinds of fights. When you're fighting Viviane Araújo, who's a volume queen, and you throw 98 significant strikes with 2 takedowns, and then you come back and you fight Katlyn Chookagian and only throw 55 significant strikes, you're indicating to me that, all right, look, now I'm going to fight you at the level you want to fight me at, and that's not good. You have to fight at your speed, at your pace, at your level every single fight, or you're going to be putting yourself in these situations, because there will be times where you can't get the car out of gear. You know what I mean? And then something that happens like with Macy Barber, where Macy Barber throws 81 significant strikes and Ribas throws 35. She's just not consistent enough for me. You know, when you look at Pinheiro, this is a girl who she's 3-0 in the UFC. Sure, she hasn't fought the greatest of competition. Waterson's she fought Waterson, she fought Hughes, she fought Ronda Marcos, and Frausta. She's not this world beater. She hasn't beaten anybody to really prove it, but she's got momentum, and there's something about her style that I feel like she can push a pace onto Ribas that Ribas is going to try to keep up with. She will probably keep up with, but the important spots and the important holes of the fight, she's going to end up losing. So when you look at this line and you look at Ribas at minus 260, anybody who puts Ribas in a parlay, puts Ribas in a wager, I think you're crazy. I don't think there's any value at all on Amanda Ribas at minus 260. I think that line is absolutely ludicrous. And if smart money does come in, that line's going to move significantly before fight time. So my official pick is I'm going to go with Pinheiro at plus 210. I'm going to take the momentum here. If you look at Ribas in her past 5 fights, she's 2-3, and the past 5 for Pinheiro is 5-0. So I'm going to go with momentum here, and I'm going to take Pinheiro, and I'm going to say Pinheiro gets it done by decision. Next fight, Medic versus Parsons. This is the last fight on the card. Well, on the main card. This is interesting, right? Medic's another guy who, I think we're sleeping on a little bit. His overall MMA record is 9-1, 3-1 in the UFC. When you look at Parsons, 9-3, 1-0 in the UFC. Now, when you look at Parsons, there's something about this guy that I just feel like he doesn't belong in the UFC. And I still feel this way about Parsons. I just don't feel like he belongs in the UFC. This is a guy who, people claim that he's like a John Lineker. He's nothing like a John Lineker. Does he have decent leg kicks? Yes. Does he have good power? Yes. But outside of that, he doesn't have great technical ability. He's not a great boxer. He's not a good grappler. He doesn't have this like game that's tied together so well that you're like, well, this guy right here is going to be a prospect. I don't see that in him. I think he's corny on a microphone. I don't think he's marketable. I don't think there's nothing about him, his game, his marketing ability, anything that really holds any light. When you look at a guy like John Lineker, even that guy, as good as he was, like the UFC really didn't have any room for him. He wasn't marketable. He didn't talk that much. He had that mullet and stuff like that. When this, at the end of the day, is also entertainment. It's not only about just fucking getting into the cage and fighting. So unless you got like top credentials and you're just putting people away in the UFC, they don't really get too excited about you. There's nothing I like about this guy. I mean, outside of his power. I don't know why people are so high on him. I'm not super high on Medic, but Medic is at least he's polished. He's got a good striking ability. He's got a decent ground game. He is well-rounded. He is more weathered in the cage. He's 3-1 in the UFC, where Parsons is 1-0. I don't look into the 9-3 MMA record and the 9-1 MMA record and say, well, Parsons got a couple more fights and it's kind of the same. So no, you got to go by competition. You got to go by how many times they've been under the lights, how they handle the media. These are spots that these guys have to deal with on the UFC level. That's completely different than the regional scene. I mean, I've called regional fights in Atlantic City. I've called them in New York and stuff like that, where I go to the desk and I see these guys are in like fucking locker rooms sometimes. Like there's these little locker rooms. They walk out, there's a couple hundred people there, and there's no cameras, and it is what it is. You're in the UFC, man. You got people watching you on TV. You got rankings involved. This is your career. You're getting paid. You're looking for bonuses. Like there's a lot involved here. You know what I mean? So I just don't think Parsons is a guy that's going to be able to carry that torch for too long. He's going to have to take an O very soon. He's going to have to take an L very soon. I think it's going to come here. I think Medic is going to be the one to get it done. I actually think Medic is going to finish him. I'm going to go Medic by knockout. I'm going to say in the second round, Parsons is going to punch himself out, and Medic is going to connect with something with more center shots. I think that's going to be his problem. Parsons is going to load up. He's going to swing wild. He's going to swing outside. And Medic is just going to come down the center. You start teeing him up that way. So first round, feeling him out, let him tire himself out a little bit, and then come down the center line with some good fundamental shots and catch this kid's chin and put him out and give him his first L in the UFC. So that's the main card predictions. If you guys want more Come to the madlabmma.com. My partner, Anthony, will be back next week. I think he had the shits today. He was supposed to be on with me. And then he came in, he told me he had fucking poopy pants. So we will be back next week. Hopefully we have another good winning week. We'll keep the streak going, and I will talk to you guys later. I think that's it, right? Yeah, and don't forget, guys, listen, don't ever fucking discount the kid, all right? This belt will be on my shoulder every week until I lose a main event. So I don't plan on getting rid of this anytime soon. I'll talk to you later.